Welcome to our deep dive on the foundations of internal auditing. We're going to be covering what internal audit really does for an organization, not just, the typical checking the books image that some people have.
Right. Internal audit is so much more proactive than that. It's a vital part of how any organization, no matter how big or small, actually achieves its goals.
Okay, so we're not talking about, catching the occasional accounting error. We're talking about making sure an organization succeeds in its overall mission, whatever that may be.
Exactly. And in order to do that, internal audit focuses on three core areas that all of our sources kind of highlighted: governance, risk management, and controls. These are the pillars of a well-run organization.
So to really get this, we need to understand each of those areas and how internal audit is involved. But maybe we can start with something a little more concrete, like controls. I feel like that's the most uh, tangible of the three.
Yeah, that's a good starting point. Controls are often the most visible aspect of internal audit. Think of it this way. Imagine a large construction project. They have all sorts of safety protocols in place, right? Hard hats, safety harnesses, regular inspections, those are all examples of controls.
So in that case, the controls are literally keeping people safe and making sure the project can continue.
Precisely. And in a broader sense, controls are any process or procedure that helps an organization stay on track, achieve its objectives. It could be anything from financial reconciliation procedures to cybersecurity protocols to, quality control checks on a production line.
So internal auditors aren't just there to make sure these controls exist. They're also assessing whether they're actually working effectively, right?
Absolutely. It's not just a box ticking exercise. Internal auditors need to determine if the controls are both effective, meaning they actually prevent or detect problems, and efficient, meaning they don't create a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy or slow things down.
So it's about finding that balance between control and agility. That makes a lot of sense. Our source material also mentions this idea of a control environment. Now, this isn't about like physical security, is it?
No, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. The control environment is really the overall tone and culture of an organization.
Hmm.
It's about the ethical values, the communication styles, the level of accountability, the attitude towards risk.
So a company could have the most robust policies and procedures on paper, but if the control environment is weak, if people aren't following the rules, if there's a lack of transparency, those controls aren't going to be very effective.
Exactly. A strong control environment is the foundation upon which all other controls are built. And one of the key roles of internal audit is to assess and help improve that control environment.
This reminds me of an anecdote from one of our sources. A partner at a major accounting firm, he made it a point to encourage junior staff to come to him with any questions, no matter how small or how silly they might seem. That seems like a great example of, fostering a positive control environment.
Absolutely. That kind of openness and accessibility from leadership really sets the tone for the entire organization. It encourages transparency, communication, and a willingness to learn and improve.
So controls are all about keeping things running smoothly and minimizing the chances of something going wrong. But what happens when things do go wrong? Or when there's a possibility of something going wrong? That's where risk management comes in, right?
You got it. Risk is inherent in every organization, in every activity. In a nutshell, risk is anything that could prevent an organization from achieving its objectives.
So anything from a natural disaster to a cyber attack to, let's say, a really bad marketing campaign.
All of those could be risks, yes. But internal auditors are particularly focused on significant risks. These are the risks that could have a material impact on the organization's ability to achieve its strategic goals.
So internal auditors are kind of like risk detectives, constantly scanning the horizon for potential threats.
That's a good analogy. They need to identify, assess, and prioritize risks, and then work with management to develop strategies for mitigating those risks.
And how do controls fit into this risk management picture?
That's a great question. Controls are actually one of the key tools that organizations use to mitigate risk. Think of them as the safeguards you put in place to minimize the likelihood or the impact of those risks.
Okay, so controls and risk management are two sides of the same coin.
Precisely. You can't have effective risk management without strong controls. And the purpose of controls is to help manage risk. It's a symbiotic relationship.
All right, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. Controls keep things running smoothly. Risk management anticipates and addresses potential problems. And then there's that overarching concept of governance. And I'll be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on what governance actually means in this context.
It's a broad term, but in the context of internal audit, governance refers to the structures and processes that the board of directors puts in place to, guide and oversee the organization. It's about ensuring that the organization is operating ethically, responsibly, and in the best interests of its stakeholders.
So the board kind of sets the overall direction, establishes the rules of the game, but they don't necessarily get involved in the day-to-day operations, right?
Right. That's where management comes in. Management is responsible for implementing the board's directives and making sure that things are running according to plan. The board provides oversight and holds management accountable.
And what role does internal audit play in this governance framework? I'm guessing they're not just sitting in board meetings taking minutes.
Definitely not. Internal auditors play a critical role in providing independent assurance to the board and senior management on the effectiveness of the organization's governance processes. They're like the eyes and ears of the board, making sure that everything is running as it should be.
So they're kind of like the referees, making sure everyone is playing by the rules and that the game is fair.
That's a great analogy. And because they're independent of management, they can provide an objective and unbiased assessment.
That independence seems really crucial. I mean, if internal audit was reporting directly to the CEO or the CFO, wouldn't there be a conflict of interest? They might be hesitant to raise concerns or point out problems.
You're absolutely right. Independence is paramount for internal audit to be effective. They need to be able to report their findings truthfully and objectively without fear of reprisal.
Our source material mentions things like the UK Corporate Governance Code and the Cadbury Committee. Are those examples of efforts to kind of strengthen governance practices?
They are. Those are frameworks and guidelines that help organizations establish good governance practices and ensure accountability.
So internal auditors are involved in making sure organizations adhere to those standards. But on a more practical level, how do they actually contribute to good governance? Our source material has a whole list of ways.
Well, one of the most important ways is by communicating risk and control information to the governing bodies. They keep the board informed about potential threats and vulnerabilities, and they provide assurance that the organization's control systems are working effectively.
So they're like the messengers, bringing the important news from the front lines to the decision makers.
Exactly. And they also play a key role in promoting ethical conduct and values throughout the organization.
Okay, but how do they actually do that? Do they just like walk around being super ethical themselves?
Well, leading by example is certainly a part of it, but it goes beyond that. They assess the organization's ethical framework, its code of conduct, its policies for addressing misconduct, and they also evaluate whether those policies are being effectively implemented and enforced.
So they're making sure that the organization is not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk when it comes to ethical behavior.
That's a good way to put it. Another important aspect of their role is providing assurance on performance management and accountability.
So they're making sure that people are actually doing their jobs and being held responsible for their actions.
Yes. They assess whether performance goals are clearly defined, whether progress is being tracked effectively, and whether there are appropriate consequences for failing to meet those goals.
So it's about ensuring that there's both accountability for poor performance and recognition for good performance.
Right. It's about creating a fair and transparent system that motivates people to perform at their best.
Our source material also mentions coordinating internal and external assurance activities. I'm not sure what that means.
That refers to the collaboration between internal auditors and other assurance providers, both inside and outside the organization. For example, they might work with the compliance department or the legal team internally, and with external auditors who come in to audit the financial statements.
So they're making sure that everyone is on the same page and that there's no duplication of effort. Smart.
Exactly. It's about maximizing efficiency and ensuring a comprehensive approach to assurance.
Okay, last one on this list. Communicating timely and relevant information. That seems pretty straightforward.
It is, but it's incredibly important. Internal auditors need to be able to communicate their findings clearly, concisely, in a way that's understandable and actionable for the board and management. They need to be able to tell a compelling story with the data they've gathered.
So they're like the storytellers of the organization, bringing the numbers to life.
You could say that. Their reports and presentations need to be engaging, insightful, and persuasive in order to drive positive change.
Wow, so internal auditors kind of wear a lot of different hats. Risk assessors, control experts, ethics champions, governance gurus, Storytellers. That's quite a diverse skill set.
It is. It requires a unique combination of analytical skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, and a deep understanding of the organization and its industry.
One of our sources mentions an internal auditor who joined a new company and immediately asked for the strategic plan. Then they scheduled a meeting with every single member of management to discuss the organization's goals and values. That seems like a pretty impressive way to hit the ground running.
It is. That shows a real commitment to understanding the organization from the ground up. Internal auditors need to be in tune with the organization's goals and values to be truly effective.
It's like they're conducting their own internal investigation, getting to know the company inside and out.
Exactly. And by talking to people at all levels, from the CEO to the frontline employees, they get a well-rounded perspective on the organization's strengths, its weaknesses, and areas for improvement.
So it's not just about crunching numbers and reviewing policies. It's about understanding the people, the culture, the strategic direction of the organization.
Absolutely. Internal audit is a very human-centered profession, even though it deals with a lot of technical concepts. And ultimately, it's all about helping the organization succeed.
Which brings us back to that broad mission of internal audit, enhancing and protecting organizational value. That sounds pretty high level. What does organizational value actually mean?
That's a great question. It's a broad concept that encompasses a lot of different aspects of an organization's success, both, tangible and intangible. It includes things like financial performance, of course, but also things like market share, reputation, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, innovation, and even environmental sustainability.
So it's not just about like maximizing profits. It's about creating value for all stakeholders.
Precisely. Internal auditors play a key role in safeguarding and enhancing that value by providing assurance, advice, and insight to the organization's leaders.
And those three things, assurance, advice, and insight, are all based on a risk-based and objective approach, right? Can you explain what that means?
Sure. When we say that internal audit is risk-based, it means that they prioritize their work based on the significance of the risks facing the organization. They focus on the areas where things could, go wrong in a major way, and they allocate their resources accordingly.
So they're not spending their time, chasing after every minor issue or potential problem.
Right. They're strategic about their work, focusing on the issues that could have the biggest impact on the organization's success.
And objective means they're not letting personal opinions or biases cloud their judgment.
Exactly. Internal auditors must remain impartial and independent, relying on facts and evidence to support their findings and recommendations.
So they're like the judges of the organization, making sure that decisions are made fairly and in the best interests of the organization as a whole.
That's a great analogy. They play a crucial role in ensuring good governance, managing risk, and promoting a culture of accountability and continuous improvement.
It really is amazing how much internal audit touches. It's like they're involved in every aspect of the organization.
It's true. They have a hand in everything from finance and compliance to operations and strategy. And that's what makes it such a fascinating and dynamic field.
When I think about it, the principles of internal audit can apply to so much more than just big organizations. They can be useful in anyone's life.
Absolutely. Think about your own personal goals. What are the controls you have in place to make sure you stay on track? What are the risks that could derail your progress? And how can you govern yourself effectively to achieve those goals?
Whoa, mind blown. So we can all be our own little internal auditors.
In a way, yes. By applying these principles, you can make better decisions, manage your time more effectively, and ultimately achieve greater success in all areas of your life.
So are you saying I should start doing risk assessments on my weekend plans?
Well, maybe not a full-blown risk assessment, but it's certainly helpful to think about potential obstacles and how you might overcome them. For instance, if you're planning a hiking trip, you might want to check the weather forecast and pack appropriate gear to mitigate the risk of getting caught in a storm.
That's a great example. I can definitely see how those principles could be applied to everyday life.
It's all about being proactive, thinking ahead, and putting measures in place to increase your chances of success. And it's also about being adaptable and resilient when things don't go according to plan.
So whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or just trying to navigate your daily life, the principles of internal audit can be incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding how to identify and manage risks, implement effective controls, and govern yourself in a way that leads to positive outcomes.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've learned that internal audit is so much more than just bean counting. It's about safeguarding the organization's future, ensuring good governance, managing risk, and promoting a culture of continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And it's about applying those same principles to our own lives to achieve greater success.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
And for you, listening, we hope you've gained a new appreciation for the vital role that internal audit plays in any organization and the valuable lessons it can teach us all. It really feels like we've only kind of scratched the surface of internal audit.
Oh, there's always more to explore. But yeah, even from this overview, it's clear internal audit isn't just like a behind the scenes function. It's really deeply intertwined with how an organization operates and achieves its goals.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about governance, risk management, controls, of those big important pillars. But for someone new to all of this, how would you sum up what makes internal audit truly effective?
What I think is so fascinating to me is that effectiveness really hinges on that collaborative spirit we keep coming back to. It's not about internal audit being the police of the organization, but rather trusted advisors who help everyone do better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if people are afraid of internal audit, they're going to be hiding things, information's going to get siloed,
Yeah,
and the whole purpose is kind of defeated.
exactly. When there's trust and open communication, internal audit can provide insights that lead to real improvement, not just compliance for compliance's sake.
One thing that really struck me is how much internal audit relies on judgment. I mean, we've got standards, frameworks, methodologies, but ultimately it seems like there's a lot of critical thinking involved.
You're spot on. You can't automate good judgment. Internal auditors need to assess situations, weigh different perspectives, and make decisions based on sometimes incomplete information.
That must be where, experience and professional development come in. It's not something you learn overnight, right?
Absolutely not. It takes time to develop that instinct, for what matters, what questions to ask, and how to present findings in a way that drives positive action.
So for someone listening who might be interested in a career in internal audit, what advice would you give them?
First and foremost, be curious. Internal audit is all about asking questions, understanding how things work, and constantly learning. It's also crucial to develop strong communication skills, both written and verbal, because you need to be able to explain complex issues in a clear and concise way.
And what about the ethical considerations? We've talked about objectivity and independence. Those seem pretty paramount.
Yeah, you're right. Ethics are really foundational to internal audit. Maintaining your integrity, being truthful in your reporting, and always acting in the best interests of the organization, those are non-negotiables.
Well, this has been a really incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground from the basic definitions to like the complexities of risk management, governance, and the evolving role of internal audit in today's world.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you. I hope our listener has gained a newfound appreciation for the vital role internal audit plays in any organization, and perhaps even in their own personal pursuits.
And for you listening, we encourage you to take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed today. How could you apply these principles of control, risk management, good governance to your own life?
What steps can you take to achieve your goals more effectively, manage risks proactively, and ultimately create more value in all areas of your life?
Yeah, those are great questions to reflect on. We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and see how they can help you achieve greater success in all areas of your life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of internal audit. We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.